Hey everybody, JCB here at The Awesomeness, and you're watching The Awesomeness YouTube channel. So it's that time of year again, a time for spooks and scares and big Halloween events with major Halloween makeovers at all of the major theme parks in Southern California. Here in Southern California, we actually have 5 major theme parks, and all of them do big Halloween events during the Halloween season. For instance, Disneyland does their Happy Hauntings, where they decorate the park with family-friendly Halloween decorations. They play goofy Halloween songs and put a sheet on Donald Duck. SeaWorld San Diego calls their event Spooktacular. They also decorate the park with family-friendly Halloween decorations and play Halloween music. Neither of these parks have so-called scare zones, which makes them great for taking little kids and horribly boring for everybody else. At 7 p.m., Knott's Berry Farm transforms into Knott's Scary Farm, which means at about 5 o'clock or so they kick everybody out of the park and then reopen the gates at 7 for people who are exclusively going to Knott's Scary Farm. I've been to Knott's Scary Farm a few times in my life, and while they do have a great array of mazes and costumes and decorations, the popularity of this event means you'll spend a great deal of time just waiting in line. In fact, the last time I went to Knott's Scary Farm, I spent the entire night just waiting in line. Like, it was so packed that the lines actually went through the mazes like a revolving door of a line. Like, they didn't take like small groups of people and let them go in the maze and make people wait and then do the next group. No, the line just went through the whole maze. Like, you waited in line while you were in the mazes. It was not fun. The popularity of this event also means prices are pretty crazy insane. So for instance, if you want to go to Knott's and not waste all night in line, you're looking at a ticket costing between $125 and $158 per person. I actually had an idea of me and my wife doing like the premium hotel package for Knott's Scary Farm this year and doing a video about what it's like to do this like top of the line package for Knott's Scary Farm. And I thought that'd be a really great video. And then I looked at the price and it's up there. It's about $210 for one night per person. And don't get me wrong, as I said, Knott's Scary Farm is a fun place to go, but it's worth that much? Probably not. And I'm sure their hotel is really great, but $420 for one night with your spouse, the hotel is probably not that nice. Anyway, let's continue. Universal Studios Hollywood becomes Halloween Horror Nights. Like Knott's, Universal closes down and kicks everybody out before reopening the gates for Halloween Horror Nights at 7 p.m. However, there is a wristband system that allows people to stay in the park when they're kicking everybody else out, if they pay a little extra, so that's nice. And then of course there's Six Flags Magic Mountain, which transforms into Fright Fest. Unlike Knott's and Universal, the park doesn't kick anybody out at 7 p.m. when the park transforms. Throughout the entire day, they'll kind of just warn everybody over the loudspeakers that at 7 p.m. when it gets dark, the park's going to transform into a scary place. So if you have little kids, maybe you want to take them home. And then when 7 p.m. comes around, it just switches over to Fright Fest. Like, they don't kick anybody out. You can stay there and suddenly experience Fright Fest. You can see all the scare zones, you can be scared by all the characters walking around, you can go on the rides in the dark. You can do just about everything without paying anything extra. In fact, the only thing you can't do without spending more money is the mazes. But a basic maze wristband costs $15, with the Express Maze Pass costing something like $35. So my initial plan this year was to go to all 5 of these major theme parks during their Halloween events, and then compare them all to each other and kind of figure out which one's the best one to go to during the Halloween season. But for some reason, everything involving my life seems to have to happen during October and always on the weekend for some reason this year, so I couldn't do any of that. Instead, we only went to Six Flags and Universal Studios Horror Nights. You see, somehow I managed to go to both Six Flags Fright Fest and Halloween Horror Nights before life suddenly decided to go crazy. And I gotta tell you, just right up front, I'm not gonna make you wait till the end, I'm not sure which of these parks is better than the other this year. It's really, really close. I guess if you're worried about cost, the Six Flags Fright Fest is definitely the way to go. Universal Studios is just ungodly overpriced even on a normal day. All year round, for your normal Universal Studios Hollywood experience, you're looking at more than $100 per person just to get in. And that's if you're a Southern California resident, which means the price for everyone else is somehow more. Which is insane because there is nothing to do at Universal Studios Hollywood. I mean, unless you're a Harry Potter superfan and you want to play dress up and walk around Hogsmeade all day, there is nothing fun to do at Universal Studios Hollywood. We had season passes for a year, and by trip 3, I was bored out of my mind. When we went to Six Flags St. Louis, which is supposed to be one of the underdeveloped parks in the chain, there was still way more to do than at Universal Studios Hollywood. And access to Horror Nights is another $100 for basic entry. This means that for $100, you'll get access to all the mazes, but you're going to wait in line for every single one of them. By contrast, you can sign up for a Six Flags membership, which is their monthly season pass, for as low as $7.85 a month, and then go to Fright Fest and buy the Express Maze wristband for $35 for a grand total of less than $43. Plus you don't wait in line at all, and now you have a season pass, not just a day ticket. So yeah, price is your biggest concern. Six Flags Magic Mountain is by far the better deal. Hashtag not sponsored. Also, here's a quick little pro tip. If you don't want to spend the extra money for the Express wristband for the mazes, just wait until the end of the night to do any of the mazes. Typically at sometime around 11 p.m., the park will begin to empty out and the lines will get shorter and shorter. The very first time I went to Fright Fest, we got the normal wristbands and waited for every maze, and then like 20 minutes before the park closed, we were suddenly able to walk straight into every single one without waiting at all. So spend your evening riding the rides in the dark. I highly recommend Apocalypse, as the track is usually completely covered with fog due to the nearby maze, and just about all the rides have short lines because almost everybody's waiting in line for the mazes. Then, as the night rolls to a close, you'll be able to get into those same mazes in record time. Like, it'll take no time at all to get through all those mazes. Though, I should say, the closer we get to Halloween, the more this may be untrue, as more and more people are going to start flooding the park as we get closer and closer to the holiday. So you might end up in a situation where it's just packed the whole night. So if Universal is so expensive and there's nothing to do, why did I go? 3 reasons. First, we got a heck of a deal on our tickets. Way back when we were visiting California's Great America, my wife got an email from Universal offering Horror Nights tickets for $68, so we jumped on that. The second reason is that Universal Studios does a great job at updating their maze selection every year. Sometimes that means creating a brand new maze based off of an upcoming movie, like they did last year with the Halloween maze in 2018. And sometimes that means creating new mazes based on movies that came out decades ago, like this year's Killer Clowns from Outer Space maze, and of course the Ghostbusters maze. So if you want something new and unique, then Universal Studios is the way to go. And this is actually something I'm kind of disappointed with when it comes to Six Flags Magic Mountain, because you'll usually get like one new maze every couple of years, whereas Universal is doing new mazes all the time. And you would think that since we're getting the Shaft on a new ride next year, they can afford to spend a little extra on Fright Fest, but yeah, no. So Universal tends to completely revamp their maze offerings every year, while Six Flags will reuse the same maze for a few years, tweaking it here and there before they finally switch it out. So me and Mike just had an amazing idea for Universal Studios. They should do a Hogsmeade maze where it's been like taken over by Dementors, and they can put like little sensors in the costumes so the kids with the wands can like cast them away with their wands. I think it'd be great. Should be easy for them to do. Get on it, Universal. Next year. To this day, my wife talks about the time she chaperoned an event at Universal Studios during Horror Nights, and there were like 100 little Chuckies running around holding knives. That's something that I've never experienced. It's something they just did apparently that one year, and they haven't done ever again. So new, fresh content is always coming to Universal Studios, and that's a great thing to have. But the third and perhaps most important reason we went to Horror Nights this year was Jurassic World. We hadn't been to Universal since Horror Nights 2018, and I had read that lines for the new Jurassic World ride were huge this summer. So when we saw that $68 Horror Nights package came with skip the line passes for Jurassic World, that made it a no-brainer. We were going to be able to go to Horror Nights, see all the new stuff they have there, and get on the new ride without waiting at all. And since we don't have any inclination to go to Universal any other time of year, this was perfect. Jurassic Park was one of the few actual real rides Universal Studios even had, with the other being The Mummy, and everything else just being a glorified movie. And I never got to ride it when it was new in its original non-broken glory. So we were really excited to see what they had done to revamp this ride. Let me say that the new ride is pretty cool, and without a doubt, the best ride of the park. Though as a quick warning, you will get wet. Like, really, really wet. And not just on the drop either. The beginning part gets you even more soaked. So yeah, the price was right. The inclusion of the front of the line pass for Jurassic World was amazing. And then of course, Universal gets a lot of credit for just keeping things updated and fresh every year. But what about the fright factor? What about like the quality of the mazes? What about which park is the most fun to go with a group of friends? Like, let's tackle all of those things one by one. Starting with maze quality, Universal Studios has a slight edge here. Being an actual functioning film studio, they have some amazing costume, makeup, and prop departments. Not to mention all of the lighting effects they have access to. Because of that, the production quality is often pretty amazing. Six Flags isn't bad, but you're talking theme park level production quality versus Hollywood movie studio production quality. That said, all of Universal Studios mazes are kinda samey feeling. Like, they all either take place in a big tent they constructed or inside of one of the big studio buildings they have there on the premises. And so they all have the same kind of narrow corridors, and you just sort of go through one single area, and it feels very boxed in. It kind of reminds me of those old first-person shooters from the 90s. And while Six Flags has plenty of that problem as well, they tend to adapt their mazes to the buildings they're putting them in. Six Flags has a lot of empty buildings that used to be things that they then turn into mazes, and so everything feels a little more lived in, a little more real. And they also use like real life objects as props, so like there'll be real crashed cars, and they'll use actual practical effects like fire that bursts out into the sky. And some of the mazes are even outdoors, which gives it a much different feel than the sort of boxed in nature of Universal Studios. Sometimes when you're in the Universal mazes, you feel like if you really wanted to, you could push the walls over and run away. Also, Universal doesn't always knock it out of the park. For instance, what the hell is this? This is in the Ghostbusters maze. I know this movie forwards and backwards. I can recite every line, and this scene does not take place at all anywhere in the movie. As far as fright factor goes, I have to say that Six Flags has a slight advantage here. Six Flags is known as a park for older kids and young adults, and as a result, they're far more willing to be gruesome and gross with their costume characters. And they're given a lot more leeway when it comes to interacting with guests, improvising, and sneaking up on you. At Universal, everything is set to pre-recorded tracks, at least in the mazes. Even the dialogue of the actors is pre-recorded, which is honestly a little cringe-inducing the first time you notice it. And because of this, you can immediately predict when the jump scares are coming in these mazes. You just kind of follow the beat, and you know there's going to be a guy jumps out when the loud noise plays. And it happens over and over and over again, to the point where it's repetitive and kind of starts to get a little boring. For instance, this guy playing Ray just has to repeatedly lip-sync the same 5 seconds of dialogue before shooting at Slimer over and over again. I'm sure they do this to make training the actors a little bit easier. I mean, they don't have to learn how to read the crowd. They don't have to be aware of who in the last group saw you scare the previous group, and so maybe they shouldn't do that same thing again. They just kind of rinse and repeat over and over again until they are living, breathing animatronic robots.
Disgusting blob.
Here's another quick bonus tip for most of these types of park events. If you get scared by a character, don't run. They will chase you. They will make it way worse for you. Why? Because after trying and failing to scare the last 10 people, they finally found somebody who reacted the way they wanted, and so they're gonna milk that for all it's worth. Just don't run at all. And if you're really scared, be like, hey, take a selfie with me. And they usually will stop trying to scare you and pose for the camera. Finally, we come to the fun factor. This one is really important, but I think the key to having fun at one of these things is just going with a group of friends that you like spending time with. So I was lucky in both instances. We went with our friends Sandy and Mike to Universal, and then we went with Kelsey and a bunch of people from work to Fright Fest, and we had fun in both places. Because really, if you're gonna spend any time in line, whether it's for a ride or a maze, you want to be spending it with people you like talking to and who you get along with and have fun with. My friend Kelsey gets so scared that she will use strangers as human shields in the mazes, and it's hilarious every time. So yeah, bring people who get scared easily. That's another bonus tip. I will say that I think Six Flags Magic Mountain was a little more fun for me for 2 reasons. One, they have all the rides running in the dark, and that's really, really cool. So even if you don't like the mazes, you can go on the rides, and they're really fun at night in the dark. Also, we had the wristbands that let you skip the line, and the students who were on the field trip with us did not, and so every time we came across one of them waiting in line while we just got to walk right in, that was really fun for me. But then again, Jurassic World was pretty awesome. Both parks have a lot to offer, and maybe next year I will get to go to all 5 Halloween events, but if you're thinking about heading to one of these 2 parks this Halloween and can't decide which one, I think you need to take everything I covered into account and decide what's most important to you. Is it price? Is it scares? Then go to Six Flags. Or maybe you went to Six Flags last year and you want something new. Maybe you want higher production values, and money is no object. In that case, definitely head to Universal Studios. I just want to leave with a couple of little extra thoughts I had. The first is, the food's definitely better at City Walk than it is at Six Flags Magic Mountain. That's a no-brainer. 2, you can't wear masks at either of these parks, so make sure you leave those at home. Just a quick little tip for you there. And 3, we did see people break character at both of these parks. so neither one really has an advantage in immersion as far as that goes. Anyway, which one do you prefer? Let me know down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I am now at just 200 subscribers away from the 6,000 subscriber mark. My next big landmark subscriber count is 10,000, so tell your friends, and until next time, keep being awesome. I typically only get 3 kinds of emails in regard to this channel. The first is, hey, you should join our MCN, a multi-channel network. We'll take 60% of your ad revenue, and in return, you'll get, I don't know, views? The next one typically goes like this. Greetings. Your YouTube account will become